السلام على مشاهدينا في العالم العربي. مساء جديد وفرح جديد في ممنوع هذا المساء أن يحل علينا ضيفا مؤسس هذه القناة، مؤسس سات-៧ التي انطلقت في يوم ما من 20 سنة أو من 20 سنة مضت. انطلقت كحلم مع شخص عاش في الشرق، أحب هذا الشرق حتى أنه أطلق أسماء أبنائه مستعيرا معان عربية. أتى من إنجلترا ذات يوم، أحب هذه البلاد وناسها، أراد أن يتحدث بلغة إيجابية تبرز محبة الله للإنسان. ضيفي هذا المساء في ممنوع تيري آسكوت. نخرج في هذا الفاصل نتعرف على رحلة هذا الرجل في الشرق ورحلة 20 سنة من حياة سات-៧ التي تحتفل هذا المساء بعيد ميلادها 20. كل عام وأنتم حيين بخير.
عشرون عاما حولت الرؤيا إلى تواصل يرتكز على كلمة الله، والرسالة إلى مضامين عنوانها الإيمان. حملنا هموم شعوب الشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا، أضأنا دروبهم بكلام الحق والحقيقة. سات-៧ 5 محطات في 20 عاما. إنه العطاء في إعلام، وللمهمة بداية. بعد سنوات من الأبحاث والدراسات توفرت الإمكانيات، وفي 31 من أيار عام 1996 انطلق البث الأول 2 ساعات أسبوعيا. في قبرص تأسست المكاتب الإدارية، وبين بيروت والقاهرة توزعت المراكز الإنتاجية الأساسية. سات-៧ هي القناة الأم. في سنوات قليلة نما بثها من 2 ساعات إلى استمرارية على مدار الساعة، في تغطية لمعظم الدول العربية وبأحدث تقنيات الإرسال. انطلاق ثاني قنوات سات-៧ منح للعائلة حصتها وللصغار تحديدا. سات-7 كيدز هي واحة الرسالة، الثقافة والتسلية لأجيال المستقبل. لتغطية أوسع ولشمولية مطلوبة كان لابد من إطلاق سات-7 بلاس، والهدف الوصول إلى أكبر نسبة من متتبعي برامجنا باللغة العربية في مساحة جغرافية أوسع. سات-7 تورك بعد انطلاقتها تعدل الاسم وزادت أوقات البث لبث الفرح في قلوب المشاهدين الناطقين باللغة التركية. تأسست كحالة خاصة وبهدف خاص جدا: الوصول إلى كل متكلم باللغة الفارسية. سات-7 بارس تكمل الدور في نشر كلمة الرب. 20 سنة من الإيمان بالدور والعمل الدؤوب المعتمد على إرادة الرب المترجم بآلاف البرامج والإنتاجات التلفزيونية. 20 سنة توجت بنقلة إدارية نوعية في قبرص، بتقدم لافت في مركز مصر، وبإنشاء مبنى ضخم في بيروت بمواصفات تضاهي مراكز أهم المحطات الكبيرة. انطلقت ونمت على قواعد الأفضل تقنياً وإنتاجياً، وقد كانت السباقة في الكثير من مواكباتها وبرامجها. دقت أبواب الملايين في الشرق الأوسط، شمال إفريقيا ومناطق أخرى من العالم. نتواصل مع كامل أفراد الأسرة، نلامس فكر الصغار، نحاكي تطلعات الأهل، نزرع الرسالة حبة قمح، نحصد الإيمان بقات أمل في حقبة زمنية هي من الأقصى والأصعب في تاريخ شعوب البلاد العربية الحديث. سات-7، 20 سنة تنشر محبة الله.
20 years later, Sat-7, 20 years of dream, keep growing, even more, even bigger. And you still wanna show us more of your dreams in different languages. ألف مبروك ال20 سنة.
Thank you so much.
بس كنت راح تقولها بالعربي.
Yeah. You want me to share what that feels like?
Yes.
It's amazing, really, because when we began, the biggest goal, I think, for us was to actually be a 24-hour channel, perhaps in multiple languages. But the idea of having multiple channels, 24 hours a day in Arabic, a children's channel, a 24-hour Farsi language channel for Persia or Iran, a 24-hour Turkish channel, that was unthinkable in those days. Yeah, it was.
And what do you feel about? I'm sure you're happy, proud of your people, of your team.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the people that rose up to do this. For me, I just feel like I'm an observer most of the time. A catalyst, maybe, but the achievements have been done by Christian brothers and sisters in these different countries, coming forwards, committing, learning, growing, experimenting, failing, succeeding, and succeeding again. And it's been exciting to watch. There have been disappointments, but there's been great progress and great successes.
How do you deal with stress and disappointment? What's the lesson and how do you deal with it personally, Terry?
Ultimately, I believe everything we do is to serve the kingdom of God. It is, if you like, if it doesn't sound disrespectful, God's problem when there is a problem, when there's a shortage of cash, when people disappoint you. So you have to hand it back to God.
Do you disappoint people? Do you think some people?
Oh, I'm sure I do. Yes, continually. I'm a terrible person when it comes to appreciation. I mean, the first thing I see when I step into a room is what's wrong, what's missing. I don't see what the people did good, you know. That frustrates people. And it's not the way to get the best out of people. So yes, I've got my failings for sure.
But I know lots of people, they like you, and even I met some people, Terry, they had conflict in one way or another with you personally. Yet I heard them saying positive things.
Differences will always occur, but to let them go on is not good. We don't have to agree with everything. In fact, difference is very good because it challenges our ideas. It's how we manage the conflict that's important. And for me, I don't like to leave any relationship broken.
You go back to some of the
Yeah,
broken.
to try and sort it out. You don't have to be the best of friends. You don't have to see each other often, but there should not be some outstanding issue between two people, unless it's completely unavoidable.
Diversity. You use the word diverse. You are one of those who really encourage. Some people, they tell me, oh, Terry, he loves ecumenical. I say, maybe, but what I see in this guy, maybe he wants to encourage something we really don't understand that much, which is diversity, the beauty of diversity.
The power of diversity is that we can
I
learn.
use the beauty, use the power. I like that.
Yes, it's powerful. It brings people together to sharpen each other, to challenge each other's ideas, their thinking, their attitudes, their opinions, even
And
their
it is
interests.
biblical. Iron
Sharpens iron. Correct. Yes, it is. And sometimes we just like to huddle together with those who share our opinions. We don't grow that way. We don't develop as people. We don't see new things. And it's especially true within the Christian communities. I think the greatest blessing a Christian can have is to meet Christians from other traditions, other countries, even other linguistic groups, and you can learn different things. Consciously, unconsciously, it changes you, and it gives you a broader perspective. The truth is that when it comes to understanding the things of God, we know so little. As Paul says, we see through a glass darkly. In other words, we see a tiny part of the truth of God. We understand virtually nothing of the universe, which is a part of God's creation. And yet we become authoritative. This is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. It's very presumptuous. It's arrogant of us to do that. Of course, we have to hold to the truth that we have discovered, but test it always. Be open to listen.
You're not afraid, like, to test it always? People are. That's why they don't want to deal with diversity or differences.
The truth is your friend.
I love this.
But discovering what the truth is another challenge.
We're gonna recite again. I love that. The truth is
your friend.
But
do you know that something is true when you hear it? It might resonate with your conscience. It might resonate with your belief system. But is it really true? And so one has to test truth sometimes.
Also, when I said diversity is beautiful, you said diversity is powerful. Now I'm going to get you back to the beauty of diversity. How do you see it on Sat-7 and the church in the Middle East, in your experience?
It begins actually in our international council when we discuss something and one person from this church discovers something beautiful in the teaching or the opinion or the contribution of a person from another church. And I believe that is multiplied if people watch different programs on Sat-7, they begin to appreciate good things. I've had people come up to me and said, I had no idea that Church X believed in these things like we do. That's amazing. In fact, this person was more convincing than my own pastor when he talked about this subject. So people are discovering other churches through the screen of Sat-7, but also in the life of Sat-7, through our staff, the way they interact with each other, with the outside community, with our boards, and so on. And it's been quite an interesting pilgrimage for Sat-7 in 20 years. Not just between the churches of the Middle East, but also between the churches of the West. They have gotten together to support this project, and normally they wouldn't work together. So they've discovered each other in Scandinavia, in North America, in Europe, and they've discovered the spirituality of the church in the Middle East, which sometimes from the outside doesn't look very real, but when you get into the churches, you see a richness that actually has been lost in much of the Western world. So that's a story of diversity in beauty.
Now, if I go to another question, and I know you think about it personally a lot for the 20th anniversary of SAT-7, is it SAT-7? Is SAT-7 today relevant? Is TV relevant? Is TV with a Christian message still relevant in a Middle East and North African context when war is taking place, poverty in many countries, controversial crises, immigration still big, literacy problems, war, killing each other, radicalism, hate. Do you see SAT-7 relevant today?
I see it more relevant today than it was 20 years ago, in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
As I look to the future, I have concerns about people's attention to television versus social media. Especially young people don't watch linear broadcast television services anymore. But right now, in this context, where there's censorship on the internet, where it's expensive to watch video streaming on the internet, where people don't have the internet, where you need to be literate to navigate the internet, then television is a very inexpensive and strategic way to share Christian truth. But it's not interactive like online, on-demand viewing and interactive websites. So it needs that support. But right now, it is relevant. And you mentioned wars. Wars have displaced many Christians. And with it has been displaced Christian witness and service. And yet SAT-7 can still stream into people's homes in some of these most difficult areas and bring messages of peace, reconciliation, can address issues of trauma and trauma counseling, can bring literacy, training for children who've been displaced from school, and there's over 5 million Syrian children alone that have been displaced from their homes or become refugees, many of them have lost the opportunity of schooling. You have another 3 million displaced persons in Iraq. They need encouragement, support. So yes, SAT-7 is relevant today. But of course, we're living in a fast-changing world, and the next 20 years are going to be absolutely so different to the last 20.
Absolutely.
That unless we reinvent ourselves almost annually, we won't stay relevant. So it is important to ask that question, are we still relevant? Not just after 20 years, but after each year.
Terry, again, the growth of SAT-7 is amazing. Now you're more than SAT-7 Arabic, SAT-7 Plus, SAT-7 Kids, SAT-7 Turk, and Pars. And you have a presence in the Middle East. You have your offices in Lebanon, Egypt, Turkey, but not Iran, or not so far.
Not yet.
Not yet. Do you hope one day to be?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are many changes going on in the Middle East. There's many changes going on in Iran. Perhaps because of our program policy, not attacking other religious beliefs, being politically sensitive as we can, and yet bold in presenting the gospel.
Again, you choose your words. Politically sensitive, not politically correct.
No, that's true. You cannot always be politically correct. But I believe there will be an opportunity for us to work, perhaps in a limited way to start with, but to have studios in Iran in the years to come. I believe that we can work constructively and positively with the government there. It's sensitive. It may not work, but certainly we have kept that door open. That opportunity is something that we would welcome.
If I take percentage of you personally, how much of you is Middle Eastern? How much of you is English? Mr. Englishman, Mr. Khawaja,
yeah.
but Mr. Masrian Lebanese.
I have lived in these countries, yes. I'm an appalling linguist. I don't learn languages easily, but I do
love your
learn from those situations and appreciate so many good things. And I guess I've adopted a lot of attitudes. I've spent twice as long living in the Middle East region as I have in the UK. In fact, I kind of lost my identity in the UK. I can't vote. I can't. I have no credit history. I'm just like a stranger when I go there.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
But yet, when you go to Lebanon and the Middle East, you feel home.
I do. Yes, I do.
What's your favorite food? You eat a lot of international countries.
I have to admit, it's Lebanese.
I don't mean a lot in quantity.
Lebanese food.
More than Egyptian food. You're going to make my viewers in Egypt unhappy.
There's many great things in Egypt, but I prefer the Lebanese food.
Terry, I'm sure sometimes when Sat-7 get proposals about shows from different people in the screen of Sat-7, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're pleased, and sometimes you get doubts, and other times you get afraid of this show or another. Did you ever felt what we're gonna do with this show or with this host or with this something project?
Yeah.
I don't mean myself.
Well, I was just thinking that's the only one good example that springs to mind.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. The others have been relatively easy.
نخرج في هذا الفاصل ثم نعود.
عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا المشوار البلش من عنا عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا المشوار البلش من عنا
كنا ورح يبقى المشوار بكرة أحلى من ما كنا
وبكرة أحلى من ما كنا لقينا ومحينا الغربة حملنا سوية كلمة ربي صرنا إخوة بالمحبة صرنا منكن صرتوا منا عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا لقينا ببيوت الكل استقبلتونا دار ودار نور الكلمة رح بيضل ضوء قلوب كبار صغار
يضوء قلوب كبار صغار
لقينا ومحينا الغربة حملنا سوية كلمة ربي صرنا إخوة بالمحبة صرنا منكن صرتوا منا عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا قصتنا بديت من هون صورة أخلاق وإنسان صارت قصتنا بهالكون نسمة حرية وإيمان لقينا ومحينا الغربة حملنا سوية كلمة ربي صرنا إخوة بالمحبة صرنا منكن صرتوا منا عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا
المشوار البلش من عنا
عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا
المشوار البلش من عنا
كنا ورح يبقى المشوار بكرة أحلى من ما كنا
بكرة أحلى من ما كنا
عشرة عمر بتحكي عنا
And then you moved from, in the Sat-7 Arabic and kids especially, from just being exclusively for Middle Eastern shows to North African as well.
Yes, and also, of course, into Turkey and Iran. The truth is that there are less Christians on the ground in some of these countries, which makes it more challenging. Perhaps there's more fear in certain countries to be engaged and public through a television channel. There's also inexperience, lack of leadership training and so on. So, but it's good, it's great to see the church in North Africa, for example, growing in maturity and taking its rightful place in the community of churches across the Middle East and North Africa. And so as much as they are ready, we are willing to give them space in our schedule. We want to encourage, in fact, them to take that place.
How much do you believe that media, what so-called Christian media, and you know my position in this, how do you see the place of Christian TVs in the other media in the Arab world?
There's quite a range of Christian television services today. They were not obviously in the very beginning. I think there's something for everybody there. We tend to kind of be a bit embarrassed by some of the programming, either because of the quality or the insensitivity of it, religiously or politically. But we say, God bless them. I think the nature of satellite television is we're broadcasting to, in the Arab world alone, over 360 million people in 24, 25 different countries. All kinds of people are watching. And they have different needs, interests, opinions that these channels can speak to. So I would say there's probably something for everybody out there. We hope that we are reaching a wider or broader interest base, and we hope that we are having a positive impact on a greater number of lives because of the approach we've taken through our programming.
In one word, or in like sentence, not one word, how do you describe Sat-7 quickly?
It's a television
What's
service.
on screen? I mean, not the, now just the messages you deliver on screen. How do you describe it?
We have two reasons to broadcast. Number one, to make the Christian faith, the gospel, available to anyone across this region, 500 million people that want to know what Christ taught and what Christ means. And satellite television is a very good delivery method, especially for women, for children, for illiterate people, for people stuck at home, people who don't normally actually meet a Christian or can never go to a church or ask anybody about the Christian faith. So that's our main reason to exist. Our second main reason to exist is to support, encourage, and help the church in its life, work, and witness for Christ, to be salt and light in society, to be the city on a hill that everyone can see, to be transparent, to make a positive contribution to all areas of life, social life, spiritual life, to help change society for the better. And we do that by encouraging Christians through programs.
Terry, before we reach the end of this show, I would love to ask you at least two other questions. One, it's how do you see the situation of the Middle East, the changes politically today, and what's the role of Christian and what's the role of Sat-7 in the middle of this?
Well, the Middle East, nobody really knows where it's going. 50 million people now are directly impacted by social insecurity, civil war, anarchy across the region, from Syria, of course, Iraq, Yemen, Libya. Other parts also have been impacted by the lack of law and order in many areas. So there's a great desire in the area for security. There's also been if you like, a disappointment in religion, disappointment in fellow Muslim believers for the inhumanity that has been shown by Middle Easterners to Middle Easterners. And this has had a profound spiritual and psychological impact, I believe, on people. It's made them search for meaning in life, and, if I dare say, a God that makes more sense to them and their consciences. Mm-hmm. And it's in this context where Christians can offer a God who brings reconciliation, makes sense. This God that we worship brings reconciliation between God and man, and between man and man. Mm. And this is powerful in a society that's falling apart with hate and with the desire for revenge, the struggle for power, the inhumanity we see where one side can callously kill people because they are different to them ethnically, religiously, or nationalistically. And so the gospel, if it has any power in society, any relevance, is so relevant in this context. How does Sat-7 help? By being a platform on which or from which the church can share this message of love, of forgiveness, of reconciliation. If you look back to 2013, the summer after the overthrow of the Morsi government, there were some extremists that went around destroying Christian properties, churches, businesses. Yep. Many Christians died in a very ugly way. How did the majority of Christians in Egypt respond to that? Did they take up arms? Did they try to take revenge? No, they were disappointed that this happened, but they went to their burnt-out church and they painted on the walls, "We love you, we forgive you." What kind of a message is that? They held worship services in their burnt-out churches. We interviewed people who spoke of the pain they'd gone through, but also the fact that they forgave those who'd killed a loved one, who'd tortured a loved one to death. This is Christianity in action. And I believe that message that went out through many different vehicles, including Sat-7, had a profound impact on the attitude of people in the Middle East towards the Christian minorities.
Terry, you choose to live in the Middle East, and you are in the Middle East. Do you regret that choice? Why do you love the Middle East so much? Even when you watch all this news of war and people killing each other, what makes you in love with this region?
It's a very difficult question.
Especially when people are immigrating outside of the Middle East.
Yeah, I understand their fears and their concerns, especially for their children and their futures.
But how about you?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to run away because number one, I don't live actually in a conflict zone, and two, I have a passport, I can leave anytime I want. But what attracts me to the Middle East, I think, is the warmth of the people. I love Middle Eastern culture. It's very different to our cold British culture. It's very compassionate, spontaneously compassionate. It's very generous. It's very welcoming. It's very rich. There are problems, but that's another reason to stay, because if you feel you can make a positive difference to people's lives, it's rewarding. And you don't get that same reward, if you like, when you live in a country where the social services take care of every need and there's not the same opportunity for service. And then, of course, there's the other things like the better weather than they have in England, the better food. And
how about the jokes and the sense of humor?
Yes, that's really good. I won't go there because I'm going to offend somebody if I start quoting some of my favorite jokes. But yeah,
I would love to hear one of your jokes. One of your
No.
Why not? And also, sometimes in your writing, you showed that the Middle East culture changed challenged you and changed you? Like I remember one time you wrote something about lying and protecting people.
Yes.
I don't mean to go to that specific topic, but
Right.
in general.
Yes, I suppose in the Western world, if you take this example, because it's an easy one, some things are very black and white. Always tell the truth, even if it's painful for the person receiving it. In the Middle East, you put the person's self-esteem, his feelings, before the truth of the words that you could say. And so you respect that person. You don't want them to be disappointed. You don't want them to be hurt or upset. So you perhaps twist the absolute truth, if there is such a thing, and you say it in such a way as not to offend or unnecessarily or to hurt that person. Or you may tell a lie to protect somebody, and you put that person's safety or esteem before telling the truth. Now, Westerners don't understand this, and I've tried to help them, but usually they look at me in astonishment that I would even say such a thing.
The weird Terry Ascott.
But it's putting human life before truth. And that is, to me, a higher value.
20 سنة رسالتنا بعمق الكلمة.
20 سنة رؤيتنا بغاية الوضوح.
20 سنة إيماننا هو حياة وعمل.
20 سنة تحدياتنا كبيرة بهالزمن.
20 سنة بقلبنا ما في خوف. 20 سنة لمستقبل أحلى. 20 سنة الأفضل ناطرنا. 20 سنة دايما حاضرة معنا.
I love poetry, and I love playing with words in all the languages I speak. And wherever I learn a new language, I love to learn the one word, how to say it in different ways. And I was thinking about you, Terry Ascott. Ascott, in Arabic, it's so close to Ascott. Yet, you're so loud with 5 channels. You're behind Huwa here. You're behind lots of media stuff in Egypt. Does that tell you something?
It means that there's not much. There's not much you can put in a name, especially when your parents gave it to you when you were very young and they didn't know how terrible you were going to turn out to be.
You're not that terrible. Terry, I really appreciate you accept to be in Memnouع for the second time. What can you say for the 20th anniversary? And I'd love if you say something about Memnouع to my viewers in the Arab world.
Well, Memnouع makes a very unique contribution to our channel. It's a wonderful bridge, if you like, to parts of society that we as a channel, most people don't connect with, cultural figures, political figures, even religious figures. And it's great to see these people interacting with you on this show. It's a bridge. It's a bridge, and we need more bridges in our societies, especially here in the Middle East. We're too busy building walls. I won't go there for that.
We are too busy
building walls to protect ourselves instead of reaching out and trusting and sharing and trying to learn from each other. So thank you. On this 20th anniversary, thank you for your contribution. On this 20th anniversary, we thank God for the amazing staff that He's raised up, for the provision of the funds that have kept us going, for the ideas and the creativity of the staff that we have. It's just been really very encouraging. And we thank all our viewers for the letters, the interactions we have with them, the encouragement they are to us, the help they give us in shaping our direction. We're there to serve them, and it's always great to hear from them.
Thank you, and you're welcome for what you said about the ممنوع show. The last word is for you, and we really appreciate people like you who came to learn our languages and to appreciate my culture with its diversity. What you want to say, it's your open window, especially you and I enjoyed, Terry, traveling with you. I enjoyed having you with me when I interviewed the Bishop of Canterbury. And I saw the Terry in Egypt, in Lebanon, in Cyprus, in England, and I saw your fear, your stress, but also your encouragement and your loving to my region. I would love to say thank you on behalf of all the staff of Sat-7. I would love to say another bigger thank you from the viewers in many regions. They never get the chance to see such beauty of the culture we have in this countries, but also the beauty of the gospel. And I remember before I became Christian, one of the things I was watching is Sat-7. Thank you.
Thank you. Pray for us for the next 20 years. There's a lot of need, there's a lot of change, and we need to respond. We're here to serve the churches of the Middle East in their work, witness, and life.
Is the cake going to be big?
We'll see.
إذن هذا لقائي مع الدكتور تيري أسكوت، مؤسس والمدير العام رئيس مجلس قنوات سات-7 بمختلف لغاتها. كان ولا يزال على عهده ومحبته للشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا، حاملا رسالة وشعار حيث أطفالكم بأمان. أيضا سات-7 ترفع شعار God's love visible، أو محبة الله التي يريدون أن يراها الجميع متجلية في برامج تعدها هذه القناة. نتمنى في العيد الميلاد العشرين أن نكون أوفياء لهذه الشعارات. هذا عماد دبور من بيروت يحييكم على أمل اللقاء بكم في لقاء جديد من ممنوع وغيرها من برامج سات-7 التي نعدكم في تفاصيل الاحتفال العشرين أنها ستكون متميزة.
As a Christian broadcaster, Sat-7 has two strategic priorities. The first one is to make the gospel available to everyone in the Middle East and North Africa, and especially to those who would never otherwise have the opportunity to hear it. This includes children, who are the least reached but most important audience, and the main hope for change in tomorrow's Middle East and North Africa. And to women, who remain generally isolated from the gospel and whose potential for influence has always been underestimated. And to the illiterate, whose only source of uncensored information today is satellite television. And lastly, to those in closed homes, in closed countries, people who may never even have met a Christian before. A second strategic priority is to encourage, support, empower the church in its life and its work and witness for Christ, especially in areas of political turmoil and Christian persecution, and to be a catalyst for spiritual renewal, church growth, discipleship, and social change in the fast-changing Middle East and North Africa.